Good morning and welcome. Kia ora koutou katoa, no mai haere mai. I'm just saying good morning to you all and welcome my Māori native tongue from New Zealand. Today our event is Parenting Coordination International Perspective, which forms part of our International Mediation Awareness Week 2021. The International Mediation Awareness Week was created to showcase mediation taking place across the world. The Mediator Network team has set out to encourage more engagement with this form of dispute resolution by using this week and activities throughout the year to promote mediation at an international and regional level. We are working with a growing number of organisations and individuals to bring you International Mediation Awareness Week. And I'm delighted that we are joined by some amazing and passionate individuals who help make this a success. This week is brought to you and managed by the Mediator Network in collaboration with our global partners and regional coordinators. I am Maudie and I shall be your session host and will be introducing your speaker shortly. However, before I do, I need to remind you of some house rules. So the sessions are being recorded, so please turn off your camera and audio. There will be a question and answer session at the end of the talk, so please put your questions in the chat box and I will pick these out for the speaker. If you do drop off the session, please log in and I will let you back in. So without further ado, before I go there too, I would like to acknowledge and pay respect to the First Nation people of Australia, and in terms of the country or where I'm hosting from today is the Turrbal and the Yagara people. So without further ado, I'm actually delighted to introduce you to Anne-Marie Cade, and she will be talking or taking you through today's session. So again, please ensure that you have turned off your camera. Sorry. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Maudie. Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here. And thank you to Joanne Law from the Mediation Institute for hosting International Mediation Week. And I'll be talking to you today about parenting coordination, an international perspective. So let me just start by sharing my screen.
Anne-Marie, I was just going to actually talk a little about your profile, if that's okay with you, while you're putting your screen on.
Yes, go ahead.
Anne-Marie runs her own boutique mediation and coaching practice, where she works with clients going through divorce and separation. She also works as a corporate trainer to help leaders and their teams in workplace managing conflict and learn effective communication skills. She was awarded a Churchill Fellowship in 2020 to research parenting coordination overseas. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Maudie. Like Maudie was saying, I've been awarded a Churchill Fellowship to research parenting coordination. So I've started my research virtually in light of what's happened with COVID. And I'm hoping to build on that and hopefully travel mid next year to conclude my research. So parenting coordination is pretty new in Australia, and through this presentation, I'll be taking you through the systems that are actually used in South Africa, Canada, the UK, the US, and some of the European countries like Italy, Spain, and Israel as well. So, and then we'll take a look at what's happening in Australia as well. So hopefully you'll find that interesting. So what is parenting coordination? I get asked this question quite often because it is a very, very new process, but from the research that I have done, a very, very useful dispute resolution process. So it is a child-focused post-divorce dispute resolution process where a parenting coordinator actually will assist parents to manage their ongoing co-parenting relationship. Now, a parenting coordinator will assist the parents as and when disputes arise Now, what happens generally is, the families are cocooned, by within that legal process. We have lawyers and we have mediators really taking care of them right through the divorce procedure. And when they have got their parenting orders, they are almost, left on their own, and they really don't know what to do because they have no skills on how to continue managing this co-parenting relationship. So it is a really great extension of the mediation process because about 70% of the work that parenting coordinators do is actually mediation. So intervening and helping parents resolve disputes as and when they arise. Now, we all know conflict doesn't end when the divorce ends. Most often it becomes worse. And there are also a lot of gray areas in those co-parenting orders. So it doesn't provide for every situation or every eventuality. And often disagreements arise between the parents, mainly around non-legal issues. So it can be about sharing holidays, parenting time, changeovers, and little niggly disputes that really end up becoming quite sort of significant as far as the parents are concerned, because they become so entrenched in their positions. It's about sort of, getting that little win over the other parents, that they get so caught up in the moment that they forget that this is really affecting the children. So when there's this third party who can really help them resolve those disputes, it is a very, very useful process. So a PC will actually work with parents to assist them to resolve those disputes as and when they arise, help minimize the conflict so parents can actually avoid further litigation. So the PC actually, in the course of their work, creates a sort of a safe place where the parents can meet with a parenting coordinator and discuss an issue that, has become a bit, that they're having disagreements over. And, what happens is generally the parenting coordinator tries to mediate that or help them resolve that mainly through a process of mediation. Now, like I said, most of these disputes are actually non-legal disputes. And research shows us that, research from the US actually shows us that 20% of high conflict couples take up 80% of the court time. And what happens is, when parents get entrenched in those positions and, sometimes refuse to budge, there ends up being a breach of those orders, and they generally have to resort to court, go back to court, so it's a contravention application, and that can be so expensive and detrimental, of course, to the kids. So when a parenting coordinator is involved, we actually can avoid that. So I'll tell you a little bit about the role of the PC. Now, the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts in the US has set out guidelines for parenting coordination in 2019. And they define parenting coordination as a hybrid legal mental health role that combines assessment, education, case management, conflict management, dispute resolution, and at times decision-making functions. It also states there that the PC can make recommendations and, if authorized, sometimes legally binding decisions for the parents and may report to the court. A PC is appointed and is accountable to court. Now, in the US, there are different types of parenting coordination, as it were. They have in California, they've got like the powers of an arbitrator, whereas in other states, they can just intervene and assist the parents resolve the disputes. But the PC generally is not able to vary whatever is set out in those consent orders and cannot make decisions for the parents. It's all about assisting those parents to reach consensus on a particular issue. And in the event that they're not able to reach a resolution, then the PC will generally submit a report to court, and the parents can make an application to court to get that resolved. So the PC does not have the right to change or vary those orders. Now, in South Africa, it's generally viewed as an adjunct process to assist the courts. And usually that is the approach that's taken in the US and Canada as well, because it's not an expensive process. It is actually very affordable. It was when I was while doing my research, I talked to many parenting coordinators in the US, and something that struck me was they said to me, look, this is very, very hard work because we're dealing with high conflict people. But what you've got to remember is that you don't make a lot of money as a parenting coordinator. We're trying to make the service accessible. So compared to what a lawyer would charge, it is very, very affordable. And also it is a process where parents can talk to a parenting coordinator or call on that parenting coordinator as and when disputes arise, because they don't want to allow disputes to sit there not being resolved. So unlike having to make an application to court and wait for that to be called, when there's a parenting coordinator appointed, they will call on the parenting coordinator, and it results in a very quick resolution most times. So now some of the work that the parenting coordinator does is act as a mediator, but a lot of it is to do with education, educating the parents on conflict resolution techniques, on improving communication, also making them aware of the effect of conflict on the children. So make them, so that they're more accountable and are made aware of the fact that, the fact that they are in conflict and disagree really has a detrimental effect on the child. So keeping that front and center. Also, there's a lot of co-parenting education that is included there as well. So in addition to that, there's a lot of work around case management. And of course, if parents are not willing to or cannot reach an agreement or a decision, then the parenting coordinator can file a report with the court, and the parents can go to court and have that issue resolved. Now, the parenting coordinator, like I said, can make recommendations and if authorized, legally binding decisions. So that's in the US, there are certain jurisdictions that allow that, but it's quite rare. Now, in some states, so in some states in the US, the parents can decide that they want a PC appointed, and this can actually be implemented without a court order. However, it's generally recommended that a parenting coordinator is appointed by the court. And the court order should actually clearly define the scope of the parenting coordinator's authority and responsibilities according to what's set out in the AFCC guidelines. So what's important to remember is that the PC here maintains impartiality in the PC process, although a PC is not neutral when making recommendations and decisions that impact the best interests of the child. So impartiality is defined in the guidelines as freedom from favoritism or bias in word or action. So in the event that the parents are not able to reach a decision, then, they will make a recommendation in the best interest of the child. My slide's not moving, sorry. It's stuck. Oh dear. I might just stop the share and start sharing it again. Oops, what's happened here? Sorry, Modi, I'm having a problem sharing my screen. It just got stuck.
Okay, I might just check with Phoebe, if you can assist us here, Phoebe.
Anne-Maria, have you stopped the slideshow? Maybe just close the slides and reopen.
Okay, just
bear with us, please, everyone. If not, you might have to just continue talking without the share.
Yeah, I know I can't. It says I'm getting a only host. You've made me co-host, haven't you?
Yeah. Okay. So wait a moment, maybe something's changed.
Yeah, I know something happened.
No,
there.
you're definitely co-host.
Yeah. Okay, there goes. Sorry about that. It's okay now. It sort of kind of got stuck. Okay, so the PC in some jurisdictions and also in Australia, some practitioners include the child in the process. So here, what it entails is not really meeting with the child to get an assessment, but it's about actually meeting with the child to get the child's view on what the relationship with the parents is. So that actually has proved quite useful, and it's an interesting approach. Now, the child is the focus when we're talking of parenting coordination, because divorce, as we know, poses significant consequences for children, and children are distressed by their parents' divorce. They become angry, they become anxious, and most times they're confused. So the normal adjustment to divorce is actually impacted by the conflict in the relationship, and the children end up paying a really, really high price. So the whole idea in parenting coordination is to work with the parents to reduce that interparental conflict, in the hope that the children are not exposed to that conflict. Okay. So what is parental conflict? So conflict is defined as any act or deed between the parents that creates a degree of anxiety and places the child in the middle and forces that child to choose. Now, often parents would think that, conflict has to be a situation where there's a lot of yelling and screaming and, just a lot of disagreement. But a lot of the work that is done in educating parents is to really create that awareness that, this conflict, however subtle, has an effect on the children. And, to keep reminding them that, the hostile body language, the eye rolling, the fact that when there's changeover, they ignore each other, the tone of voice has a detrimental effect on the children. And it is hoped that, through an education process, that this behavior will abate. Now, what the consequences of that type of behavior is that, it can reach a level of hostility that really involves a situation that can result in a power imbalance sometimes. And, that is quite detrimental to children. Now, for high conflict families, the appointment of a PC seems to be the most viable option. The parenting coordination process is an opportunity for those parents to actually learn new behaviors and be accountable for inappropriate ones. So the thing is, the PC process is a non-confidential process. So unlike mediation, if the parents actually are entrenched in their positions and really behave in a way that's detrimental to the children, they can be reported to court. So again, talking about the education, skill development, and new ways of interacting, I think is the real value in having a PC there, because learning those conflict resolution skills, conflict management skills, actually, those are skills that, they've kind of got to internalize. They can't just learn that in one session. And, most of the marriages or most of these relationships have failed because there has been a breakdown in communication. So it doesn't mean that just because, the divorce process is over and they have got their parenting orders, that they're going to continue to co-parent and do it in a way that is going to actually benefit the children. So through that, constant interaction with the parenting coordinators, some parents actually are able to learn those new skills and interact in a way that is beneficial to the kids. And the PC actually is in the best position to provide that information and actually then reduce the emotional distress for the kids. So the role of the PC is actually like no other. They are in the position to help reduce emotional distress and loyalty binds. And like I said earlier, in some jurisdictions, they can meet with the children and understand how best to improve the situation for those children. So when I was working, actually we did some training with some PC practitioners from South Africa. They role modeled how that conversation pans out. And it's about just having a conversation with the children, meeting the children, and their perspective is that, it's a good thing for the children to know who it is that their parents are actually meeting with and who's helping their parents, manage this co-parenting relationship better, because as children get older, there is that awareness. So especially with kids who are maybe, over like 10 or 11, they really have a good understanding. And the practitioners from South Africa, what they were explaining to me and telling me was that, they get a really good insight into the behavior of the parents. And, that is related back to the parents. And the parents are made aware of what the children think, because sometimes the children will not tell the parents, but actually will confide in the parenting coordinator, and that process can be quite useful. Now, It's again through process of education and strategic interventions, and the ability to report non-compliance and testify. So that is a key role of parenting coordinator. The fact that it is actually not a confidential process. So almost the parents are put on guard that if they don't actually pull their heads in and act in the best interest of the children, it is going to be reported back to the judge, and the judge is not going to look on them very favorably. So PC is a non-adversarial form of dispute resolution for high conflict cases. It actually goes beyond mediation or psychotherapy and a multitude of other family services. So again, it's non-confidential, child-centered process and designed mainly to help the parents implement and comply with what has been set out in the court orders. And like I was saying earlier, it enables the parents to make timely decisions, which are actually consistent with the developmental needs of the child. So even issues that arise with regards to, maybe extracurricular activities or something to do with school and education, the fact that it can be resolved in a timely manner is actually very, very beneficial for the kids. Now, in South Africa, they have a very good system, PC system, which is quite well developed. They've actually been using PCs for probably around 12 or 13 years. So it's an extrajudicial procedure. The PC assists the parents should disputes arise post-divorce. But what's interesting is that in South Africa, it is recommended that a PC is actually appointed in almost every consent order. So up to 70% of consent orders have a PC appointed. And it's not just in high conflict cases. In South Africa, they see it as being a role that is so important in order to reduce that interparental conflict, that they recommend that a parenting coordinator is appointed almost in every court order. So it is again seen there as an extension of the mediation process. And another interesting aspect of the process in South Africa is that usually PCs are appointed for a fixed term. So in the US and Canada, usually for 1 year or 2 years. But in South Africa, they recommend that a PC is can be on record until the children turn 18. So the reason they do that is they feel that, obviously the parenting orders are not going to provide for the needs of the child as the child grows up, and that would prevent the parents having to come back to court when disputes arise. So they allow for the appointment of a PC right until the kids are 18. And something else that's really interesting is that it's not just one PC who will be working with the parents over that period of time. So it just depends on the development, the needs of the child, and different PCs with different ranging qualifications and experiences, depending on the unique needs of that family, would be appointed. So they again include the voice of the child, and find that's a very useful part of the PC process. And that again is not as an assessment, but rather to get the views of the child. So in South Africa, the training is also quite rigorous. They have 40 hours of training for PCs. It's a requirement that all PCs have a qualification in mediation, have extensive experience as a mediator, and dealing with high conflict cases, and a lot of psychologists and social workers have trained as parenting coordinators, as have lawyers as well. So it's quite interesting the way they conduct their training. There's a lot of role playing, and during the training, they are actually assessed on how well they do. So it is quite rigorous, the training for PCs in South Africa. Now, in South Africa, the PC will make a recommendation on issues if the parents can't work the situation out. So if there's, disputes regarding child support, or, maintenance of children, they can then call on a PC who has experience in dealing with those issues and financial issues. Whereas if they have if there is a requirement to call on the PC and resolve disputes regarding parenting issues, then they will have a PC appointed who's actually got that experience. So in the event that the parents actually are not able to reach a decision there, what they do is a recommendation is made to court. And the parents will then, take the issue to court. But in South Africa, the view is that because the parents have actually tried to resolve this issue with a parenting coordinator, and they've possibly hit a roadblock, the parenting coordinator will give them a report that's taken to court, and the judge has that background. And, it is not, it doesn't end up being a very difficult process, because the judge has an understanding that these parents have actually tried to resolve this, but that there have been issues, and as a last resort, they're coming back to court. So in South Africa, they find that it has worked, that process has worked quite well. But having said that, in South Africa, more than 85% of the disputes that are brought before a PC are resolved at the mediation stage. So that was quite a good outcome for them. Now in South Africa, again, they have no legislation, but there are guidelines that include a PC in all consent orders. PC can be appointed till the children are 18, and it's not just for high conflict cases. And I think that's a really important point, because even low conflict can lead to high conflict issues as kids get older. So I think that's quite useful that they are actually appointed in all cases, not just in high conflict cases. And PC is widely practiced in South Africa, and the costs of the PC are generally shared by the parents. Now, in the US and Canada, PC has been practiced for quite a long time. It started in the US in the 1980s, and it has evolved as a tool that courts use to manage interparental conflict post-divorce. It's actually almost practiced in almost every state, and some states have no formal rules or statutes. And the models range from those that are similar to mediation to those that are a combination of mediation and limited arbitration, like authority over day-to-day issues. So, but no state or province allows a change to custody or court orders without judicial review. So that again is important to remember. Now, again, in the US, they find that research shows that post-divorce conflict between parents continues 3 to 4 years post-separation. And the main reason PC was developed was to help parents manage their interparental disputes. But unlike in South Africa, a parenting coordinator is only appointed in high conflict cases. But because it started, or when it started, there were actually no rules or statutes, and the development of the rules and statutes have actually lagged behind the practice of PC. And they have actually been developed piecemeal, depending on, how the process has almost evolved. So almost every state in the US that has PCs, it would differ from state to state. So in some states, the role of a PC is similar to a mediator. In others, it is akin to a special master with arbitration powers, like in California. And in California, it's a non-confidential process, whereas in Florida, it's a confidential process. So it's quite wide and varied, the way it's practiced in the US. And now 21 states in the US and in Canada, 2 Canadian provinces have PC rules and statutes regarding the appointment of the PCs, but a large number of the PCs actually function without specific PC rules or authorities. So hence, the role of the PCs actually vary quite significantly. Now, in the US, the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts has developed guidelines, and the American Psychological Association has also published guidelines in 2021. And these guidelines actually focus on training, on the competence, on the ethical issues, rather than standards of practice. Whereas in Canada, they have standards of practice. So they have the British Columbia Parenting Coordinators Roster Society, and then in Ontario, they are working on further developing their rules. And Prince Edward Island actually has an interesting program, which is very, very new. So I don't know much about it at the moment, but that's one of the places I will be visiting next year to learn more about how their process works. Now, this was interesting because in Pennsylvania, they were using PCs, and then there was the case of Yates versus Yates, where the father argued that the appointment was an improper delegation of judicial authority, and the decision upheld his contention and provided that the PC only have authority on minor custody and visitation issues. And there was a lot of confusion as to the role of the PCs, and parenting coordination was actually abolished. And in 2033, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decided to eliminate parenting coordination because there were concerns regarding the delegation of judicial authority. But in 2019, it was revived again in Pennsylvania, and they actually have now established a rule that sets out the appointment, how the appointment of a parenting coordinator is done, and procedures and qualifications and minimum training requirements. And in Pennsylvania, qualified mental health professionals and lawyers, or as they say, attorneys, can be PCs. So in California, there's no statute or statewide parenting coordination rule, but the LA Superior Court has drafted their own stipulations, and sometimes appointments require stipulations by parties, and that's set out in the order. Sometimes judges don't order it or can't order it. So PC in California is again a hybrid of parent education, coaching, mediation, arbitration, and child custody evaluation. And there it's a non-confidential process, and appointments are made under a number of different statutory authorities. Now, in Florida, on the other hand, they have a set of statutes and rules and ethical guidelines, and it is a confidential process there. So that is a little bit difficult to understand how that works, because the beauty of PC sometimes is the fact that it is non-confidential, and and the fact that it can be reported to court. But in Florida, it is considered a confidential process, and that's something I want to research a little bit more when I complete, when I do go over there. Broadly, in the US, the practice of PC is that it has resulted in lower court appearances, and disputes are actually addressed in a timely manner. But they haven't actually done any research or got any statistics on the value that parents have found, how parents have actually benefited, whether it has actually reduced that interparental conflict. It probably has, because there's obviously reduced court appearances, but they haven't really done a lot of research in that area. In the US, they have found that there has been resistance from the bar, obviously, because there's been a little bit of confusion. But what's interesting is that it is different all over the US. It ranges from co-parenting counseling with no authority whatsoever to quasi-judicial authority and everything in between. Now, in Canada, on the other hand, it started in the late 1990s, and it has got really, really popular in the last 15 or 20 years. No legislation or court authority for PC in Ontario. They're currently putting together guidelines, and it is not court ordered in Ontario very often. So PCs end up being directly contacted by their clients and appointed. So what's interesting is that in British Columbia, they have a very rigorous training program, and they're actually at the forefront of PC in Canada. So there are specific provisions in the law that recognizes parenting coordination services, how a parenting coordinator is appointed, and the practice of parenting coordination. So in BC, they have a very rigorous training program again, where you have to do like 50 hours of training and sometimes continuing professional education every 3 months. So that is their program is quite interesting, and I'll be looking at that more in depth as well and studying their processes. Now, Prince Edward Island, also they have a pretty interesting system there, where there have been specific provisions that have been enacted quite recently, legislation passed in 2017. And they have a situation similar to what we have here with Relationships Australia, where mediators, you can get access to a mediator. So that it's sort of similar to that, but I have not got too much information on it, and that will be interesting because apparently it's working quite well there. Now, in Australia, PC is actually gaining popularity, but there seem to be dilemmas again on how it is practiced, because the legal framework is still to be developed. Now, I've had conversations with judges who are, some of them are quite skeptical about appointing PCs, because they're not so sure about the training and whether, there's no accreditation. It's mostly unregulated. So they have concerns. But having said that, there are some, I find that there are some judges who are actually making orders, and it's becoming definitely more popular now. Now, the FCC has formulated guidelines in 2019, and the Australian chapter is also working on developing a framework within which PC can operate, so that there's some sort of uniformity. So in Australia, it offers a process to the parents to have access to the professional who will, of course, assist them with the ongoing management of their interaction and resolution of disputes. So there again, they can only help to the parents to reach a decision and resolve those disputes, but no varying of those orders that have been granted by the court. If the parents are not able to resolve a dispute, then a report would have to be forwarded on to the courts, and the parents can take the issue to court. So the main idea with PC in Australia is again to help them manage the conflict and interpret what's set out in those orders, resolve disputes in a timely manner and a cost-effective manner, so that it will of course reduce the number of applications made to court and ensure better outcomes for children. So in Australia, a PC has to be appointed by the court. So PC can be appointed in final orders or even in interim parenting orders. It's a non-confidential process and appointed generally for a set period of time. So between 1 year, maximum 2 years. I haven't seen any appointments for longer than that, and that's generally the recommendation, though I of course personally feel that I like the way it works in South Africa, because I think sometimes it's better to have a parenting coordinator on hand. And what's interesting was in South Africa, they said that, you know, sometimes they see clients at the beginning of the process quite frequently, maybe, you know, maybe twice a month for the first 3 or 4 months, and then the parents sort of start learning the skills and they may not hear from them for probably 6 or 8 months. So PC is not a service where you would be meeting your clients on a regular basis. It's almost as if you know, you've got a fire extinguisher, so the PC is like a fire extinguisher, so that if you have a dispute, you can, you know, call on the PC, get the fire extinguisher, you know, put the fire out, but you don't have to always be using that PC. The whole idea is that the parents learn the skills, learn how to manage the dispute, and the PC just sits there in the background and called upon, you know, only when they really have an issue they can't resolve. So when should a PC be appointed? Generally in high conflict cases, if parents are actually unable to effectively communicate and lack those co-parenting skills. If mediation has been unsuccessful, parenting coordination is useful, because, you know, there's a lot of education in that process. So it's not like just one mediation and you try and resolve it and you don't get an outcome and then you're out of there. Here, it's continuing. So that's beneficial. It can also be quite useful, you know, in situations where children are denied access to a parent or restrictions on child's access to extended family members. So that, again, there's that conversation and getting parents on board to really, you know, help them understand the detrimental effect of that approach. And also in situations where there's a high rate of re-litigation, it would be good to have a parenting coordinator. So I think that was it for me. Happy to take any questions.
That's wonderful, Anne-Marie. I'm just want to thank you very much for this wonderful session. Again, does anyone have any questions? I've actually put a link into the chat box. I think there's a lot of thank yous coming through. Appreciate that. Again, another thank you as well. So, like I said, I've actually put in the link there if you want to actually look at other sessions too. Don't forget to actually go to that portal and register. So I just want to actually thank you all for attending today's session. We want to say a huge thank you to the Mediator Network, the Mediation Institute, our sponsors, collaborators and volunteers who have all contributed to make this week a success. And again, don't forget to go into that link that I've just provided in the chat box.
And
I'm hearing
can I just add something? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Sure. Sorry, Marty, can I just add something before you close up? So if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me at Divorce Ride. My email is info@divorceride.com.au. Happy to, you know, have a chat and share more information, because parenting coordination is in its infancy, and it would be amazing if, you know, more people get trained in as parenting coordinators. And I think it's really, really important work. So please get in touch with me. Happy to chat or answer any questions. Thanks, Modi.
No problem. Thanks, Anne-Marie. And for everyone else out there as well, don't forget in relation to the global debate, which is being chaired by Jonathan Luck. So try and, I guess, book a session there. And also a reminder about the Mediators Network membership too. So to renew or extend your membership for another 12 months during November. I just want to remind people too as well that Anne-Marie's put in the info divorce at divorceright.com.au. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.